perhaps we should tell you a little about us. My name is Bill, and my wife is Samantha. We are both in our early 50s and have been married for 33 years. We have 3 sons, all grown and graduated from college. 2 of them are married and already have children of their own. My wife has always been a woman who attracts attention. When we got married, her measurements were 115 pounds, 36B bust, 24 waist, 36 hips. Today, she weighs about 130 pounds. Her breasts are a firm 36C and easily pass the pencil test, with a little extra fullness distributed in just the right places. Her body remains toned thanks to daily workouts at the gym. She has preserved perfectly with age, and in many ways has become even sexier than before. We make good money, live comfortably, and enjoy each other's company. Although our sex life has diminished over the years, that blue pill turned out to be a real revelation. However, I would never have believed that this could happen to me. At the beginning of our marriage, we enjoyed each other's intimacy, shared and explored our fantasies. A few years later, we began to discuss, in the midst of passion, the idea of Samantha dating another man. She was a virgin when we got married, and she was never with anyone else. She talked about this fantasy, but in quiet moments she insisted that she was completely committed to me and didn't want to be with anyone else. In a way, it was reassuring to me, but at the same time I longed for us to have this unique experience together if she decided to try being with another man. We agreed that she had the freedom to choose another man to be intimate with, but on the condition that she would tell me everything that happened. Over the years, we often fantasized about this together. She told me stories that I believed were made up to excite me during our intimacy. I, too, offered ideas, which she then transformed into her stories for our shared enjoyment. It wasn't one-sided. I also shared my fantasies with her for her pleasure. She was masterfully talented at making stories incredibly realistic. Samantha grew up in a strict family where she was taught that husbands only wanted good girls and that fantasies were acceptable, but in real life, this was unacceptable. She believed that men want to see only good girls in their wives and not lecherous or flighty women. 3 weeks ago, our youngest son, John, was hospitalized after a car accident. He needed surgery due to internal bleeding, and I offered to donate blood so that he would not be dependent on a donor system. It was this incident that led to an unexpected discovery that I did not even suspect. The hospital informed me that after tests, it turned out that I was not the biological father of our 3rd son. I asked to check the results, and they confirmed them twice. Samantha stood next to me as the nurse told us the results and turned pale, realizing that her secret was out. The hospital staff left us alone, and we silently thought about our own things. My head was full of questions. How could this happen? Why didn't I know this before? How could I not notice? How could Samantha let this happen? How many men did she have? Why me? Why now? After a few minutes of silence, Samantha began to cry. She didn't say anything, but I saw how hurt she was, and I hugged her to let her know that we would get through this together. She buried herself in my shoulder, sobbing, and held me tightly. I asked why she was crying and why she didn't tell me about it earlier. Her answer was typical of her. She wanted to remain a good girl for me, and now that illusion is destroyed. She was afraid that I would stop loving her, and she was afraid for us. My feelings of love for her overwhelmed me, and I told her that I had always wanted a bad girl in the bedroom, remembering our fantasies, and that she shouldn't worry, but we really needed to talk. It was obvious that there was a trust issue in our relationship. However, for now our priority was John. The doctors told us that John's surgery was a success, and after visiting ours we went home. In the car, I asked her what happened and why she didn't tell me anything. Did she know that I was not his father? Why didn't you confess? I was calm and sincerely wanted to understand what had happened and how great the disconnect was between us. Since she had been with another man at least once, why didn't she honor our agreement and tell me? This was my deepest fantasy. After a long pause, she began to tell her story. She said she had been dreading this day since her relationship with the man ended about 2 years before John was born. She knew she should have told me everything, but the thought of me finding out about her cheating paralyzed her. Sometimes it was this fear that kept her in those relationships because she was not ready to be frank. She wrote down everything that happened in her diary so she could reread and remember the details. This diary was at home, and she suggested that I read it if I really wanted to know the whole truth. She warned that the diary is filled with sex, passion, emotions, highs and lows, and leaves nothing to the imagination. She asked if I was sure I wanted to know everything. Samantha admitted that she loved me with all her heart and did not want anything to change between us. We live comfortably together, we are compatible like no other, we are soul mates, and we have a growing large family that we enjoy. She left the decision up to me. Read the diary or let the situation go. She also told me that if I read her diary, I would never be able to think of her as a good girl again, and that if a good girl was really what I was looking for in a wife, I'd better forget about it. What happened today, and we can continue to live as if nothing happened. Her affair lasted for 24 years and was not completed. She added that if I read her diaries, she would accept any decision I made whether I wanted her to end the affair. But at the same time, as a condition of her frankness and her agreement to share all the details, I must promise in advance that I will not leave her, that there will be no divorce, I will not change my mind, I will not tell my children or anyone around me about this. This will be just between her, him, and me. She warned that if the situation were reversed, she would not be able to continue living with me due to the intensity of the feelings I would have for another woman. But since I myself once encouraged her to take a lover, perhaps I can live with it, and maybe even be able to enjoy this strange mixture of delight and pain caused by her adventures. She understood my way of thinking too well. This went far beyond any fantasy we had ever shared. This was a real situation, confirmed by the presence of a child. I was intrigued and couldn't help but want to know everything about her ongoing affair, what they did, how it all started, why it happened, and everything else about her secret life. Yes, it will hurt, but this is the same pain that I once dreamed of but had never experienced before. However, nothing could prepare me for the truth about her affair and the emotions we would experience together. We stopped for dinner on the way home, and she asked me not to discuss the matter further until I had fully made up my mind. The food was excellent, and we remarked that John would be fine and that we were now closer to each other on a deeper level than before. It was as if some invisible weight had been lifted from Samantha's shoulders, and for the first time we could simply enjoy our friendship and love. When we got home, I opened the car door for her, and her legs caught my attention. Not that it hadn't happened before, but now I knew another man might have enjoyed the same view as she got out of the car. I watched closely as she walked towards the house with girlish grace in the movements of her hips. I wondered if he was experiencing the same sensations that I was now. When we went into the bedroom to get ready for bed, I watched her again as she took off her shoes and stockings. Her naked legs and feet were so seductive, so attractive, full of promise. I looked at her beautiful toes, manicured nails, and graceful arches. Did he enjoy it as much as I do now? When she took off her dress, I looked at her beautiful body again. It was so sexy, even after all these years. But something about him seemed different. I couldn't put my finger on it, but maybe it had something to do with what I now knew. Another man had seen the same thing. I was wondering when was the last time they were together. Where was it? Maybe in our bedroom. When she took off her bra and shook out her long hair, I saw the young woman I had once married, so fresh, so sexy, so mine, at least as I had always believed. She went into the bathroom and took off her panties, not letting me see her completely naked. I don't know if it was intentional, but my senses were heightened, and it was as if I was seeing her for the first time. She turned on the shower and began to wash herself. I also quickly undressed and, contrary to my usual habit, went into the shower after her. She was a little surprised, but I offered to soap her back. As my hands slid over her body, I again couldn't help thinking that maybe he was doing the same thing. Am I copying his movements? I didn't know, but I wanted to find out. I enjoyed washing her hair, something I hadn't done in years, but it felt right. My hands slid down her body, stopping on her smooth skin, always well-groomed and flawless. I couldn't help but admire her attention to detail and her habit of taking care of herself. She turned to me, carefully soaping my body carefully and methodically, paying attention to every part: back, shoulders, arms, legs. There was a sense of lightness and confidence in her movements, and a light, almost playful smile flashed on her face. This moment was filled with a simple but deep feeling of intimacy, silently speaking about the trust and warmth that remained between us. We got out of the shower when we were done and started drying each other off with towels. She very carefully began to kiss me while we were drying off, and in her kisses there was a promise of something more for the rest of the evening. She remained completely naked while she dried and combed her hair, her muscles and body curves turning me on again. I wondered again if he had taught her this, because she had never let me enjoy her nakedness for so long before. What did he teach her, or perhaps bring out in her? When she finished, she came to bed naked, which was very unusual, since she usually preferred long nightgowns and panties. I always slept naked, and we cuddled together, enjoying the touch of our naked bodies, arousing us. She then started whispering in my ear, asking if I had made up my mind whether we were going to stay together despite her cheating, or whether our marriage as we knew it was truly over. I asked her just one question because I knew she wanted to stay with me. Will you tell me everything without hiding anything from now on? If you can't do this, then it's probably better for us to break up. But if you don't keep secrets, no matter how difficult it is, then I want to be with you for the rest of my life, as husband and wife. She again warned me that deep down she was not a good girl, and if that was okay with me, if I could still love, appreciate, and accept her for who she was, then she was willing to share everything. Moreover, she even wants to do it. After hugging a little more, I agreed to her terms, and she climbed on top of me and cried. I hugged her tightly, and she told me not to worry. These were tears of joy. We hugged and whispered tender words to each other, said, "I love you," and other phrases that lovers say. As we started to calm down, we started kissing passionately like we hadn't done in years. I was aroused by the feeling of her completely naked body next to mine, and I wondered again, did she do this with her friend all the time, sometimes, or was it something special just for us? Her kisses became more and more tender and persistent. She gently moved down my body, exploring it as if for the first time. This was something new for both of us, because before she had avoided such manifestations of intimacy. There was something different in her touch. It became bolder, filled with an emotion that I couldn't immediately understand. I felt both happy and puzzled. We had been together for many years, and such behavior was unusual for her. I interrupted her and asked the question that worried me. Why did you suddenly decide to change the usual course of things? She looked at me with a slight smile and admitted that she had long wanted to open up and try something new, but her previous beliefs did not allow her to do so. These words of hers gave me mixed feelings. On the one hand, I was glad for her frankness and the fact that she sought to make our union more sincere. On the other hand, I couldn't help but wonder where this sudden courage came from. Her sincerity was both reassuring and alarming. She added, "I want us to have no more secrets. I won't hide anything, as you asked." This phrase awakened conflicting emotions in me, but her look, full of confidence and love, made me realize that we were on the verge of something new in our relationship. After these words, I pulled her towards me, and we began to kiss deeply. Our movements merged into a single rhythm, filled with passion and intimacy. She hugged me, and our bodies continued to move in harmony, creating a feeling of complete mutuality. Her touch and energy conveyed the depth of her emotions, and my closeness to her seemed infinitely important. This moment was special, different from anything that had happened before. We completely focused on each other, forgetting about the outside world. Her gaze, filled with sincerity and warmth, conveyed all the strength of her feelings, and I felt them with every cell of my body. Every movement, every detail of this moment made it unforgettable. It was not just physical intimacy, but a real connection that reminded me of the importance of taking care of each other. This evening remained for us a symbol of complete trust and emotional unity. I decided to take this opportunity to start asking questions as we were both in the afterglow of this magical moment. She raised her finger to silence me and said she would answer one question tonight and leave the rest for later. After all, her affair had been going on for 24 years, and there were too many details to cover everything in one or even a dozen nights. Ask me one thing today, not about what I did, not about anything else, but about my friend. And then we will rest until the morning, she said. Samantha thought for a minute and then said the following, as I remember. She was very honest and left little to the imagination, just as we agreed. Listen carefully, because although she spoke frankly, I felt a strong understatement in her words. He is a man. I mean, he's a man in every sense of the word. He is strong, he has strong desires, he has a strong ego, but he is also empathetic. When we met, he was searching and, in a sense, unsure of himself. Today, he is emotionally confident and believes that it is thanks to me. He constantly makes me smile. He has the same fantasies as you, perhaps even more daring and exotic, and he has always wanted a woman who would help make them come true. Yes, he used me, but in many ways, I also used him to live the secret life of a bad girl while maintaining a safe and stable relationship with you. I wasn't married to him, which meant I was free to explore him and my fantasies, to live them for real, and it didn't matter if I lost his respect, because I was afraid of losing yours if you and I acted out those fantasies. He and I have been through so much over the years and are really close and intimate. Do I love him? Yes, in a way, but not in the way that I love you deeply and deeply. You are my husband and partner for life. He doesn't. He is a man. He touches me on many emotional levels, and I can understand his mood just by looking at him. He cares about me deeply, but we both understand that our future is very close friends who share a lot of fun and secrets. He is married, although he was not when we met. His wife knows nothing about me or our relationship. He has his own business and is very rich. Therefore, traveling to remote places is not a problem for him. You don't know him, but he knows you. He's handsome, sexy, and has a wonderful size. I can feel the difference between you when each of you has sex with me. Yes, he probably had sex with me more than you have in the last 24 years. And he had all kinds of sex with me, unlike you. I knew he was John's father, but he doesn't know it. This was my secret and my burden. For the first few years, it was a fairly simple affair, but as we became more and more comfortable, and he realized that if the affair ended, I would be forced to tell you everything we did together, he began to take advantage of the situation and push me to do things which I never thought possible. He has a really wonderful creative mind and is a very smart person. But then, yes, I truly enjoyed the way he pushed my boundaries. I think I would sum up my words like this. He is a man. My mind cleared and my body returned to normal. As Samantha stood up, leaving me in a state of reverie, I began to realize that her connection with this man went far beyond a simple affair. Their relationship was filled with emotions, an unusual form of affection and physical intimacy that I could not even imagine. It made me wonder, am I really ready to learn the whole truth, or are some boundaries better left intact? Hello, this is Samantha. Bill wants to know everything, and I suspect you probably want to know everything too. Honestly, Bill does a very good job of listening to details about my past relationships. Bill shares this with the world, although I'm not entirely sure why he feels the need to. I don't have such a need, but he has it, and I am not in a position to deny him this desire. This has been his passion for 28 years, and now that he has his own story, he wants to share it with you. When I told Bill, he's the man, you should have heard the tone of my voice. I said it quietly and thoughtfully, as a fact. Bill didn't misunderstand me. I didn't say Bill wasn't a man, because he certainly is a man strong, loyal, high-standard, easygoing, a wonderful father and husband. He was always loyal to me and worked hard to provide for our family. I could never have found a better life partner and husband. Bill always said that I should be more adventurous. Who would have thought that I was already more adventurous than he could imagine? I feel like if the roles were reversed, I wouldn't be able to emotionally cope with what I'm putting Bill through right now. But men are very different from women, and of course, not all men are the same, just as not all women are the same. Bill is enjoying this revelation much more than I would have guessed. It's like all our fantasies have come true, and he's very excited about our situation all the time. In fact, it is true, and even more than he knows yet. I have always believed that a wife should never lose her husband's respect, and if this happens, it will only be a matter of time before he leaves her. I vowed at a young age to never let my husband lose respect for me. That's why I couldn't tell him about my relationship with my friend. I didn't realize that Bill wouldn't have lost respect for me because of my sexual adventure, but he almost lost it because I hid it. But now that has changed. He's delighted with what I've done with my friend, and we're both amazed at what we've accomplished together since that revelation. I feel like he's resentful that I didn't tell him sooner, but because I constantly reassure him that he's my true love, he's able to let the sexual excitement take precedence over the pain of my secretive behavior. Thank God, because I really don't know what I would do without him. He means so much to me. And as I reminded him, everything I did was within the framework of the agreement he and I made with him 28 years ago. We've had a very intense sex life over the past 3 weeks, and he's done more to me than he's ever done before. During this time, I only met my friend once, and I told Bill in advance that we would see each other. My friend doesn't know yet that Bill is aware. I hope that after the truth is fully revealed, Bill will allow me to continue this relationship, but it is up to him. I will follow his decision, at least that's what I think, although I'm not sure. For your understanding, I feel the need to go back and talk about our past and our early years together, Bill's and my early years. We met in college, and within the first 10 minutes, I felt like we were going to be together forever. Bill didn't realize it right away, but after a couple of months of dating, we were both sure that our love was real and we were made for each other. I was raised in a very strict family where they taught me that sex is bad and only acceptable between husband and wife. Therefore, during our dates, we limited ourselves to only chaste kisses. Bill wanted more, but respected me enough to respect my boundaries. We got married after 3 years of dating, and on our honeymoon we both voluntarily lost our virginities, giving ourselves to each other. We had great fun together, both in and out of bed. We were and remain kindred spirits. I used my hands to excite Bill, and he did the same for me before we made love. Sometimes I reached the peak of pleasure when he was deep inside me and moving with energy. We shared our fantasies, although I was sometimes uncomfortable doing this, since I considered myself a good girl and thought that such behavior did not correspond to my image. However, deep down, I was also captivated by thoughts about new possibilities in intimacy that went beyond the usual. About 5 years after the wedding, when we already had 2 sons, his fantasies took on a more daring character. He started asking me questions about whether I would like to try sex with another man. These thoughts disgusted me at first, but I tried to answer his questions as best I could. I didn't want another man. I wanted him, our family, a house with a white fence, and to live happily ever after, like in a fairy tale. No matter how many times I said this, Bill continued to introduce another man, or even men, into his fantasies with me. Around the same time, he got a new job as a sales representative, which required traveling 3 to 4 nights a week. I didn't like it, and I didn't think he should have taken the job. But he kept saying that he wanted to do this, that he was good at it, and this was a way to fulfill my dreams of being a stay-at-home mom with a house and cars and everything. So I accepted it as part of the price to pay for the other things we wanted. It became very difficult for me to take care of the boys alone during the week, and when Bill came home, he wanted sex, which was not on my list of favorite things at the time. The more I slowed down in the bedroom, the more he wanted, and his fantasies of me being with others became stronger. Bill never understood that, despite my tiredness, I needed love all week to want intimacy with him on the weekend. Our lives went on, and we got to the point where our boys finally went to school for the day. I felt free, as if a huge burden of motherhood had been lifted from my shoulders. Things got better between me and Bill, and when he wanted love, he got it. My body craved his as much as he craved mine. This intensified Bill's fantasies, which now always focused on me being with other men. When I told him that I didn't want other men, He didn't believe me, and then we made an agreement that was the real beginning of my sexual awakening. If he hadn't insisted, we probably wouldn't be where we are today. His words were very clear to me. He said that he wanted me to be free to explore my sexuality with others, and that he wanted to encourage me to find and enjoy other men. He said there's a lot more to love than just boring sex. He also added that I didn't need his permission to explore this, but when it was all over, he would like to know all the details. I didn't know if he really expected me to go through with it or not. I was concerned that he was unsatisfied with our regular sex life and wondered if he was exploring his sexuality with other women during his trips. I asked him, since he is so insistent that I be with other men, does he himself want to get permission to be with other women? He said no, he only wanted me, and he promised he wouldn't be with anyone else. Then I asked where his fantasies come from, and he replied that he buys magazines to pass the time in hotel rooms at night. I had never looked inside these magazines, so I asked him to show them to me the next time he bought them. He agreed and left one copy each before the next trip. And so I was alone at home during the day, and this good girl began to read what he left for me. If he had been home when I first looked at these magazines, I would have thrown them away and given him a severe reprimand. Such magazines are clearly not for a good husband. But as the week went on, I found myself returning to the magazines again and again to read the articles, the letters that ordinary people sent, and the stories that stood out. Bill had dog-eared the pages, to my surprise, not with pictures, but with text that described stories of what wives shared with other men. I began to realize that he was really passionate about this aspect of human sexuality. Then my own fantasies began to appear out of nowhere, and I began to wonder what it would be like. But I was a good girl, or at least I thought I was, and I needed to be that way anyway for my husband's sake. I didn't believe he really wanted his wife to be so wild. Around this time, I joined the local school parent-teacher committee and became actively involved in its work. It was nice to interact with adults again and not just small children. There was a man in the group, a parent, who also served on the committee. We got to know each other and found that we had a lot of the same views, and he was fun to hang out with. He was a single parent with a young daughter who was in the same class as our second son. His wife left for another man, and he was left alone to raise his daughter, take care of the house, work, etc. If you haven't guessed yet, he is that same man. But this did not happen right away. We met at meetings and were friendly, but not too close. About 4 months later, when spring was in full swing, I needed a car to get home from a meeting at school, and he offered to give me a ride. When we arrived, he asked if he could come over, but I politely declined, saying that I had too much to do, and maybe another time. But the seed was sown. He was interested, and it seems that I unconsciously let him know that I was also interested in him. When I mentioned to Bill that I had a very nice man giving me a ride from a TA meeting and that he wanted to come over, but I said no, Bill even joked that I should take him up on his offer and see where it went. Then I laughed and said that he risked losing his good girl if he wasn't careful. Little did he know how accurate that statement would be. I never mentioned the man again after that, and Bill never asked. The following week, I needed transportation again, as our car was still being repaired. I called my new friend and asked him to give me a ride. He agreed and also suggested we have lunch together after the meeting. I don't know why, but I agreed and said that it would be nice. I think it was a mixture of loneliness due to Bill being away 4 or 5 days a week and an honest admission to myself that I was getting caught up in the attention of another man. I felt like an old mother raising 2 boys alone, and he was offering me some kind of escape from this routine. When I was getting ready for the meeting, I carefully put on my makeup, not too brightly, but enough to highlight my features. In many ways, I was as excited as a schoolgirl about going on a first date, but it wasn't a date. I knew next to nothing about it. I didn't know what his true interest in me was, or my own interest in him. All I knew was that I was interested in where this might lead. I put on a beautiful dress, a little more elegant than usual, and sandals. Not long before, I had a pedicure. I knew that Bill always liked to see my well-groomed feet with perfect nails. I thought my new friend might like it too. I remember feeling weird and thinking, what am I doing? After the meeting, we went to a local restaurant, Olive Garden, and took a secluded booth at the back of the room. I wasn't too worried that people I knew might see us, and this place gave us the opportunity to talk calmly. We talked for over 3 hours and learned a lot about each other. Yes, he was a single father. No, he didn't have anyone at the moment. Yes, I felt like I was a single mother due to Bill's frequent departures. Yes, he was attractive. Yes, according to him, I was smart and charming. He had his own business, so he had a lot of free time during the day. Yes, he was committed to being the best father he could be to his daughter. He also suffered because his wife left for another man. He didn't understand what had happened. He just knew that she no longer wanted to be either a wife or a mother, and he was left with nothing. I felt compassion for him and empathized with his pain. We didn't talk about sex. We didn't discuss fantasies. We didn't talk about us. It wasn't romantic because we were talking about who each of us was and what was going on in our lives. That day, we became close friends. He drove me home in time to meet the boys when they arrived on the school bus. He didn't offer to come over, but I offered to cook him lunch the next day at our house. I wanted to give back for today's lunch, but looking back, my true motivation was to get to know him better. I was curious. I wanted to know more about this person. I wasn't thinking about sex, romance, or a relationship, just having him as a close friend. It was Wednesday and Bill was due home on Friday, so there was one more day of personal time left before the weekend. He smiled, accepted my offer, and we agreed to meet the next day at 11:30. I didn't know where this would lead, but I was intrigued and, frankly, happy that I had found someone who could become my true close friend. I felt lonely since Bill was away a lot, but now I found a new friend and stopped feeling lonely. The next day, I sent the boys to school on time and then cleaned the house and put myself in order. I put on a simple dress, light makeup, no stockings, and, as usual at home, was barefoot. I looked informal, but still dignified. My friend arrived on time, and I prepared burgers for the grill, as well as potato salad and fruit. He suggested we cook, and I thought it would be nice, so we went out on the deck together, and he grilled while we talked. His first question surprised me. Why did his wife ever consider another man? What was wrong with him, and what was he lacking in? It took me a while to find what to say, but it made me feel compassion for his situation. And honestly, I wanted to comfort him as best I could at that moment. I think it was at that moment that an emotional connection arose between us. Once the cooking was complete, we ate outside, enjoying the warm, gentle breeze. When we finished, he asked if we could meet again because he really enjoyed my company and needed a close friend to help him get through his current situation. I agreed, but said that it could only be on Monday, since Bill would return home tomorrow morning. As he left, he slowly and softly put his arm around my back, pulled me towards him, and kissed me for the first time. It was incredible. Bill's kisses were always strong, but this one was so soft and gentle. Very sensual, but at the same time absolutely unobtrusive. I answered him just as gently, making it clear that my feelings were mutual, and the ice between us was clearly broken. We both understood at that moment that we would become lovers, and nothing could stop the snowball that we began to roll down. After he left, questions and doubts arose in my head. I was supposed to be a good wife, but instead I thought about another man, knowing that he was thinking about me. I think I empathized too much with his pain, and the desire to alleviate it became one of the driving forces behind my actions at that moment. I didn't think about Bill or about anyone else, except my former loneliness and my ability to please him and help him. I didn't know how it would all end, but I felt that our connection would become physical as early as next week. This thought scared me. The next day, Bill returned as planned, and we spent the entire weekend making love. I was on fire because I had a new outlook on life, relationships, and my marriage. If Bill hadn't told me about his fantasies, made agreements, and shared his story journals, my old self would never have gotten into my friend's car for the first time, let alone gone to lunch with him. Monday morning, Bill left on a business trip, and I cleaned the house again, sent the kids to school, and then took a shower. What should I wear today? I wanted to please my friend and show him that I was here for him. It's not often that I choose denim short shorts and a yellow knitted tank top that I bought for Bill before the kids were born. I'd worn this outfit once before when Bill and I went to the local amusement park, and he couldn't take his eyes off me all day. The knitted top was tight, very sexy, and flattered my figure. I wore my most seductive bikini panties under the shorts. No stockings, no shoes, just 3 items of clothing. My nails were well groomed, and I looked anything but modest. When my friend arrived, I met him at the door in this revealing outfit. His gaze ran over my entire body, and upon entering the house, he kissed me softly. Then he smiled and said that he was incredibly glad that we had become friends, and that I looked even more beautiful than he could have imagined. He added that the most important thing for him is to know that I respond to his feelings and want to please him just as much as he does me. We went into the living room, where I prepared cold sandwiches and a fruit plate so that we could have more time to chat or something else. We sat next to each other on the couch, and he hugged me, putting his hand on my back. My skin was exposed from my neck to the beginning of my shorts, and he gently stroked it with his fingers. I fed him pieces of sandwich, and in return he brought me fruit. His touches were so gentle, he did not demand anything, allowing me to share with him, and this was exactly my plan. I unbuttoned his shirt and took it off along with his t-shirt. Then I crawled off the couch, laid him on his back, and lay on top of him, feeling our bodies touching. We kissed and whispered for a long time. He asked if I was okay and reminded me that I was a married woman. I told him not to worry because I understood perfectly well what I was doing. I said that I wanted him to forget about his pain and that I really needed to feel his closeness. He gently ran his hand over my shoulders, barely touching, as if checking how I would react to his touch. His palm slid lower, touching the fabric of my top, and I felt a wave of warmth and desire begin to rise within me. It was like a quiet touch to something intimate, but at the same time simple and natural. I took a deep breath, feeling my emotions become brighter. His gaze slid over my face, catching my every movement, every gesture. Slowly, I lifted my arms and lifted my top over my head, letting the fabric fall to the floor. At that moment, it seemed to me that the whole world was focused only on the two of us. His eyes lingered on me, and I felt a sense of confidence ignite within me. This was a new moment for me. I felt truly beautiful, desired, and his admiration only intensified this feeling. He took a step closer, his movements calm and soft, as if he wanted me to feel completely comfortable. Then he invited me to lie down on the floor, and his voice sounded so caring and gentle that I could not help but obey. I sank down onto the soft surface, feeling his hands gently touch my thighs. His fingers found the hem of my shorts, and he froze slightly, as if asking my permission. I lifted my hips to help him and saw his gaze filled with something more than just lust. It was a moment of complete trust when there was nothing unnecessary between us. He removed my shorts slowly, as if he was taking time to savor every moment. I felt at the center of his attention, as if nothing more important simply existed right now. His gaze slid softly downwards, and I caught how he studied every detail, every curve of my body with tenderness and admiration. It was more than just passion, it was a moment when two people completely opened up to each other. He then stepped back for a moment to remove his shoes, socks, and other items of clothing. His movements were unhurried, and I watched him with curiosity, feeling this incredible tension growing between us. His eyes met mine, and there was so much warmth and desire in that gaze that I felt my heart begin to beat faster. I felt something more than just physical attraction growing between us. It was not only the closeness of bodies, but also the closeness of souls, something deep that cannot be explained in words. He came up to me again, his hands gently touching my hips, and I felt a wave wash over us, taking us into a new world where there were only the two of us, and this moment filled with tenderness, passion, and mutual attraction. I had come a long way to get to this point, and it was not the terrible event that I had always imagined it to be when Bill and I fantasized. In Bill's fantasies, I didn't know this man. I didn't care about him. He was just the owner of size. The man in Bill's fantasies was a toy, but now I was giving myself to a man who cared about me and who needed me. This changed everything. The moment he touched me, I was clearly aware that his presence was completely different. His movements were different, they were soft but confident, and the feeling went deeper than just physical contact. He gave me something that I had not experienced for a long time: warmth, care, attention. Something happened between us that day that is difficult to describe in words, but it was more than just intimacy. I felt that he valued me for who I was, despite the changes that had happened to me after having 2 children. I was proud of being in good shape and felt wanted. We both could afford not to think about unnecessary precautions, and this added freedom to us. For the rest of the day, I carried with me the feeling that something important had changed, leaving a mark inside me that I could not ignore. It was a wonderful first time, and my friend kept repeating how happy I made him, that he no longer felt somehow inadequate, because now there was at least one woman who really appreciated him and was ready to give herself for it. Prove. I assured him that he was not inappropriate, that he was a wonderful lover, and, most importantly, a wonderful person. He dined with me at our home 3 more days that week. We made love at least once every time, and it was so sensual. I was captivated by his kindness and care. When Bill came back over the weekend, I felt a little pain, but I let him have sex with me. Bill thought he was making love, but I perceived it more as just sex. This was not what I experienced with my friend, but Bill didn't seem to notice, and I wasn't going to tell him anything until then. When will this later come? I thought about not telling him anything at all, but I didn't want to break our agreement. So I mentally reviewed our agreement and ultimately came to the conclusion that I had no obligation to share anything with Bill until this was over. Those were the exact words Bill used. Okay, I won't say anything until my relationship with my friend is over. This created some interesting situations, as you will soon find out. On Monday, Bill left, the kids left, and my friend arrived just before lunch. I was wearing a summer dress with nothing underneath. We started kissing again as soon as he walked in, and he made an interesting remark. He suggested that since I was going to be naked soon anyway, why shouldn't I greet him naked? It had always been one of his fantasies for a woman to want him so much that she would already be naked and available when he walked through the door. He immediately added that if I was uncomfortable doing this, he would understand and did not want to put me in an uncomfortable position. It was so nice that he didn't put pressure on me, but simply expressed his desires. On Tuesday, yes, I met him naked at the door, and we made wonderful love for the entire hour and a half that we were together. I felt so bold, so brave, it was beyond anything I had ever done for Bill. This became our ritual. I greeted him with just a smile. He liked my well-groomed fingernails and toenails. He said they looked very feminine and my body was just perfect. I loved that sense of wildness. Here she was, Bill's perfect wife, meeting her lover completely naked. That same day, I started going to the gym again after he left and before the kids got home. My body became even more toned, and he liked it even more, as did I. I wanted to please this man by any means necessary. One day, after a wonderful session of love, we were lying on the floor in the living room, where we always made love. I asked why he wanted a relationship with me and not with some other woman. He said he had 2 answers. The first concerned me personally. He wanted me because we were perfect for each other. We thought alike. I was smart, charming, and, in his opinion, just a wonderful woman. The second had to do with the fact that I was married, and he wanted to prove to himself that he was man enough to attract a married woman. Because another man had stolen his wife, he felt a serious inferiority complex and wanted to know if he was capable of winning the heart of another married woman. He was very excited by the fact that he cuckolded Bill. This surprised me, but in a way it made sense. I never thought of Bill as a cuckold, but in fact he became one, and my friend and I contributed to it. I was fine with that. Well, I admit that in reality Bill made himself a cuckold by his actions, fantasies, and everything else he allowed to happen. At that moment, I also felt joy and excitement that we had cuckolded Bill. This brought me even closer to my friend, and we made love again. The following week we met, knowing that it would be the last time until the fall. The school year was coming to an end, and we would have no privacy to enjoy each other. On the last day, after another passionate act of love, my friend asked if I was ready for one highlight. He said that he had always dreamed of grooming a woman himself and enjoying the feeling of her smooth skin. I was shocked by this request because, other than trimming, I had never groomed myself there, let alone allowed a man to do so. I couldn't refuse him because it was our last time together for a while. It was a piquant idea, and before I could change my mind, I said, "Yes, let's do it." He laid me on a towel in the living room and tremblingly began a small cosmetic procedure. With care and attention to detail, he left my skin feeling perfectly smooth. In the process, he suddenly muttered, "I wonder what Bill will think of this." This phrase took me by surprise. For the first time, I thought about Bill and how he might handle such changes. This thought had never occurred to me before, and now it caused a wave of doubt. "What have you done?" I asked, confused. "I thought you'd like it," he replied. "I wanted it to become something symbolic, something personal, so that every time Bill pays attention to this, you will remember me." His words puzzled me. I mentally separated my relationship with my friend and my husband, but suddenly I realized that there was a kind of rivalry between them. I wasn't looking for this competition, but I couldn't deny that the changes gave me new sensations. "Okay," I answered after thinking, "since you've done this, no. I will continue to take care of myself the way I now like it, and all this time Bill will notice the changes." It was important for me to show that I choose what to do. Perhaps at that moment, I finally realized my strength in this situation and took a step towards accepting myself. Bill repeatedly asked me questions about the moment when I told him that I didn't even think about him until I stayed smooth. Bill also wants to hear again and again how I felt like a depraved and desirable woman, and not an old mother and a lonely wife, when I stood completely naked in front of my friend when I met him in our house. He wants to hear how I felt at dinner, naked in full view while my friend was dressed, and how I lay naked on our living room floor to increase the sexual tension, spreading my legs, inviting him to take off my clothes. Bill wants to know what feelings filled me at that moment when there was great tension between my friend and me, turning into something more. He likes to listen to me describe our relationship, how sincere, trusting, and close it was. Bill is interested in every moment, every sensation, to understand what this relationship meant to me. He loves to hear me talk about how we did special things for each other, whether it was caring, attention to detail, or moments that highlighted our closeness and trust. For example, when he helped me feel comfortable and well-groomed, showing care and a caring attitude. I think it is important for Bill to understand the depth of our connections in order to better understand me and my experiences. Then I remembered Bill. Bill remembers the day he came home and I took the kids to his parents. I put on a light summer dress, no underwear, just panties. I was barefoot and in a playful mood. We were grilling dinner and he asked why I was trying so hard. I said I wanted to celebrate the end of the school year and the beginning of summer. I also admitted that I may have taken him for granted and wanted to change that. Bill remembers how after dinner I took his hand, pulled him towards me, and kissed him. It was unusual for him that I was the initiator. Then I took off my dress right in the dining room, simply pulling it over my head and throwing it in the corner. It was the first time I was left almost naked outside the bedroom. It was the first time I had two men on the same day. I wondered if Bill would notice. We continued kissing, and I led Bill into our bedroom where we undressed, lay down together, and enjoyed each other. When he took off my underwear, he noticed that I decided to try something new. His smile became especially warm and sincere. I haven't seen it like that for a long time. Bill had mentioned his preference more than once, and now we were both pleased with how it had changed our experience. His touch was gentle. He ran his hands over my legs with care, gently lifted them, and I felt especially close to him at that moment. This was the first such sincere and touching experience that I remembered for a long time. His gaze spoke of admiration, and his touch filled me with confidence. We spent that night especially close to each other, enjoying the summer evening. I felt that something special had arisen between us. We slept cuddling, which was rare, and I thought about how wonderful our summer together would be. This summer, I continued to take care of myself in a way that we both enjoyed. We laughed, shared moments of joy, and became even closer. From time to time, I thought about my friend, with whom I shared thoughts, and thought about how wonderful it would be to return to normal life in the fall. In some ways, the summer went by very quickly, and it was a wonderful time that Bill and I had that summer. I didn't want it to end. The boys were out of school and home all day. The summer holiday at the lake for 2 weeks was one of the best ever, and I felt so alive and aware of what was going on in my life. I had so many mixed feelings, so many questions about whether I had gone too far, so many questions about how I will feel in the fall. Every time I took care of my appearance, feeling the smoothness of my skin after shaving or noticing that it was time to update my care, I involuntarily remembered him. He was always somewhere nearby in my thoughts, especially in those moments when I saw my reflection or heard his voice. He often asked if I was still following my new style, as he called it. At first, I answered evasively, with a slight hint of playfulness, leaving a little mystery. His questions always added a subtle tension to our conversations, making me smile and remember how much I valued our communication and time together. The day after Labor Day, school started again, and Bill hit the road again. I was alone and prepared everything for our meeting. I made sandwiches ahead of time and also got ready by showering, shaving, and taking everything off. I had decided to continue seeing my friend in July and was now implementing this decision. I felt completely naked waiting for him to arrive. I knew this was how he would want me to greet him after a long summer, and I was determined to please him. As was his custom, he drove straight into the garage and closed the door behind him, entering the house. We agreed that this was the best way to prevent any conversations with the neighbors, although it was ironic that he drove the same color and make of car as Bill. If the neighbors don't look closely, they'll just think Bill is home for lunch. I stepped away from him again as his eyes scanned my naked flesh from head to toe, stopping along the way. I kept my arms crossed loosely behind my back and concentrated on maintaining my pose. But before he finished watching, we were locked in tight hugs, tongue-kissing, and just enjoying what I call afternoon delight. While we were kissing, he picked me up and carried me into the master bedroom. This was a first since we always played in the common room. He gently laid me down on our bed with Bill and, continuing to kiss me, at the same time moved his hands all over my body. I remember his scent and how different his scent was from Bill's. I remembered how his hands felt on my body, how much larger they were, and how much firmer his touch was. I remembered how his kisses were more demanding and how he had completely taken over me. When he stopped to start undressing, I started to stand up saying, "No, that's Bill's bed, not yours." And as he said he wanted me in that bed, the floor in the family room was too hard, and that we enjoyed it even more. I tried to convince him that the guest room would be a better place, but he was persistent, and after taking off his shirt and pants, he simply lay on top of me and started kissing me again. At that moment, I remember the feeling. It's wrong, but I was so caught up in the moment that I simply kissed him back and wrapped my arms around his back, pulling him closer and closer to my body. I remember feeling his closeness. His kisses were gentle, but filled with passion. He paid attention to every part of my body, making me feel wanted. His touches were so sensual and skillful that I completely lost myself in the moment. Perhaps it was influenced by everything at once our place, a long-awaited meeting after a long separation, or the anticipation that we both felt. It was a moment of complete togetherness, filled with emotion and release. When we were next to each other, he looked at me with such admiration that I felt how strong our connection was. We moved in unison, exploring each other, finding new facets of intimacy. It was not just physical attraction, but a sincere desire to be together. That day, we were united by a passion and a deep need for each other that we could no longer contain. We never had lunch together that day. He took some sandwiches with him to eat on the way to the office. That day, I felt completely possessed by him in my bed, in Bill's bed, and now I was left lying, exhausted, with a wet spot on my side of the bed. But I felt great. We continued to meet like this every day except Friday that week. Each time my friend carried me to Bill's bed, and that's where he made love to me and I to him. The boys returned home later that week with colds they had caught at school. Unfortunately, my friend and I were unable to meet the following week as both boys were homesick. To make things even more confusing, I also caught their cold or flu or something similar. We went to the family doctor, and he prescribed antibiotics for each of us. After the first course of pills, the boys recovered, but I needed another, stronger course of antibiotics. As I started to get better, the boys went back to school and my friends started coming over for afternoon treats again. That's when the song came out, Afternoon Delight, and we both liked the title and the lyrics weren't bad either. The Starland Vocal Band not only won a Grammy, but was a hit for me and my friend. We continued to make love that month, and Bill and I continued to make love when he was home. I really enjoyed my sexuality, the pure excitement and delight of having two lovers. I admit this was a real gamble for me, and I behaved very selfishly, but deep down I hoped that this would last forever. But when you feel like this, something is bound to go wrong, and in my case, it was a missed period. I shouldn't have missed it because I was taking my birth control pills diligently, but still, it wasn't there when it was supposed to come. The next week, my friend noticed that my breasts were getting bigger, and after his comment, I also felt that they were fuller and firmer than usual. That's when I realized I was pregnant. I went to the doctor feeling more vulnerable than ever as I had to take off my panties, knowing he had never seen me clean-shaven before. I hoped he wouldn't make too much of my style. When he asked me to lie down, slide down the table, and put my feet in the stirrups, my legs were spread. Yes, you are indeed pregnant. He said he would do tests, but he was confident. I asked how this could happen, and he replied, "You already have 2 children, I thought you knew." Laughing with his sweet smile, I think he was trying to diffuse the situation. It didn't work. I wanted to know why the pills didn't work. He looked at my notes and asked about the antibiotics the family doctor prescribed. He said one of the side effects of taking these antibiotics is that they can reduce the effectiveness of birth control pills. And here I am, 4 weeks pregnant, not knowing exactly who the father is, but knowing that my child was conceived in love. When I told Bill about it the following weekend, he was much more delighted than I was. He also wondered how this could happen, and I explained to him what the doctor said. The next week, when I met a friend, I told him what the doctor said. He was stunned and asked if there was a chance that the child was Billa. This question surprised me, although it was probably logical from his point of view, since I had never shared with him that Bill and I made love whenever possible. I think he thought I belonged only to him and was somehow living celibately with Bill. In fact, both my friend and Bill kept my sexual appetite high. The more I got, the more I wanted, and hardly a day went by that I didn't make love to at least one of them. When I told him I probably got pregnant while I had a cold, and we weren't together that week because the boys were home, I thought there was a good chance the baby was Bill's. He showed great curiosity about my sex life and wanted to know the details of my sex life with Bill. He was interested in questions about what I did with Bill, whether he was better in bed than him, whether Bill turned me on more, how many times we had sex, how I felt when Bill made love to me, and so on. These were the same questions Bill asked me when we fantasized together about me having a lover. Of course, with Bill, after we fantasized and he climaxed, I always reassured him that I was still a good girl for him, and this precluded any real connection with another man. But if Bill wanted to hear fantasies, I sometimes met him halfway. I realized that sharing small details at the right time could greatly arouse my friend. Not that he needed any extra stimulation, but it still made me realize how much control I had over both men in my life. They both wanted me, and I wanted them both. Not long after, my friend began hinting that he wanted me to be his wife, so that I could leave Bill and spend the rest of my life with him. I gently told him that this was impossible, that I loved Bill as a husband and my friend as a friend, but not as a husband. He said he understood, but something had changed in our relationship. And this was the beginning of him starting to see me more as a secret lover than as a special person with whom he wanted to connect his life. I was so busy with my life, my kids' lives, Bill, my friend, and maintaining the status quo that I didn't notice these changes right away. We continued our daily ritual of meeting at our house for lunch, playing in Bill's bed, and spending quality time together when Bill was on the road. I continued to greet my friend almost completely naked at the door, with two small changes. I decided to leave a natural look in the intimate area, giving it a neat and well-groomed look, slightly trimming the edges. Instead of strict forms, I chose a classic and natural style. At first, it was a little unusual, but over time it became comfortable. After 2 pregnancies, I realized that naturalness in this matter is more important for me. This experience became part of my story, which Bill talked about in his videos. I still remember how unexpected and educational it was at the same time. The second change was that I began wearing Bill's wedding rings during our meetings. The first time, my friend asked why I was wearing them. I replied that since Bill was my husband, I wanted to wear the rings as a subtle reminder to both of us that I was not leaving Bill. He smiled and said, "Okay, it will be even more fun knowing that I'm sleeping with another man's wife." Now his competitive nature came out again, and his reaction made me think. That day there was a special closeness between us, and I paid more attention to his feelings than usual. I loved watching his reaction when my ringed hand gently touched him. His look of pleasure made me smile, especially when he noticed the ring on my finger. In these moments, I again realized the strength of our connection and enjoyed how much we influenced each other. That same day, I started thinking about what to give Bill and my friend for Christmas. My friend had few needs other than, as he put it, a wife, and Bill's wish list was equally short. I asked my friend what he would like, and he, after thinking, suggested a calendar. In fact, this would be a great gift for Bill too. I didn't immediately understand what he meant. A calendar is an inexpensive thing and, of course, not very personal. He chuckled slightly and said that the calendars he had in mind would be very personal and memorable. He had a photographer friend who had just started doing boudoir photography. He took a promotional brochure out of his pocket and gave it to me. I had never heard of this before it was the late 70s, and I was curious to read the following in the booklet. One of the greatest gifts you can give your loved one is a beautiful photo of yourself, and boudoir photography is a popular form of self-expression. As a respected photographer, I specialize in creating stunning images that you will treasure for a lifetime. Boudoir photography is generally photography that romanticizes and glorifies the female figure. It is often made as a gift for a lover. Boudoir photography typically involves romantic and sensual imagery and often features the model nude, semi-nude, or with hints of nudity. Shoots almost always take place in a bedroom studio, using exquisite accessories to create an atmosphere of romance and grace. If you want to give the perfect gift, book your boudoir photography session today. You don't have to have a model look or body. Skillful use of draping clothing and accessories will highlight your strengths and hide your flaws. Look at the examples of boudoir photography below, and you will see the range of images and styles we can create, from simple romantic to sensually erotic. My first reaction was one of quiet contemplation, but inside I felt a great excitement wash over me. Will I be able to do this? It would certainly be something new, and I knew both Bill and my friend would be delighted. But to create an entire calendar of 12 photos, one for each month, the thought made my heart skip a beat. I reminded him that I was already 2 months pregnant, and a pregnant woman is not very suitable for the role of a model. To which he replied that I was glowing from pregnancy, my full breasts were perfect, and I would be stunningly beautiful. I asked him about the photographer. Could he be trusted not to show the photos to anyone else? Would I have to completely undress, or could he just suggest nudity? He said that he had known the photographer for many years, that he was professional and reliable. As for the clothes, that will be up to me, but he really hopes that I will agree. I've always dreamed of being a model, and what my friend told me was definitely a unique and exciting way to capture my beauty forever. I asked why he happened to have this booklet in his pocket, to which he replied that he had started looking for a model to shoot calendars that he was going to give to his very special clients. The thought gave me chills, and I wondered how he planned to find such a model. It was as if he had read my thoughts and said that he had thought about asking me to become his model, but did not want to put pressure on me, leaving the decision up to me. I asked about his special clients, and he explained that they were all wealthy executives or company owners, most of whom were married. He assured that they would be extremely discreet, but also added that they would be pleased to see a beautiful, slightly pregnant married woman in private, intimate images. These clients were very important to my friend, and he trusted them completely, assuring them that they would enjoy the calendar entirely in their own privacy. He also assured me that no one I knew would know about it, and admitted that it would be a fantasy come true for him if I agreed to pose for his special calendar. The look in his eyes as we lay naked together convinced me to agree. I didn't fully understand what exactly it meant to agree, but I trusted him and felt a strong inner desire to capture the beauty of my body in photographs while I was in my prime. Perhaps I was starting to have a midlife crisis and was craving sensations that would make me feel alive, excited, hiding the feeling that I was just a bored housewife. The following week, he arranged a photo shoot for me in the morning. He also said that Phil, the photographer, advised me not to wear tight clothes a couple of hours before the shoot so as not to leave marks on the skin. The day before, I made an appointment for a pedicure, manicure, and styling. As for clothes, I packed up all my sexy lingerie sets and wore just a light summer dress, my rings, and sandals. No underwear, no bodice, just a light outfit under a coat for the journey there and back. In the morning, as I applied my makeup with utmost care, I felt excited. My friend picked me up, and we went to the studio. I didn't know what to expect, but I felt alive and energetic like never before in my life. When we arrived, I met Phil, a tall, elegant man a little older than me, and his assistant Andy, who looked about 23. Phil had a warm smile and good nature that immediately put me at ease. He suggested we start right away and took me to his studio, set up in his bedroom. My friend and assistant also followed us, clearly not wanting to miss anything interesting. The room was beautifully furnished, perfect for the photos he planned to take. The bedspread was bright red, and the walls were painted a soothing shade of pink. Elegant floral arrangements adorned the room, and a large white fluffy carpet lay on the floor. The lighting was created by many bright flashes that were almost invisible when not working. Phil asked me to stand next to my bed and took some pictures of me as I was to warm up and get an idea of how best to work with me. I was ready, and he started shooting with a Polaroid. He later said that he would use his professional 4x5 camera, but it was not needed for test shots. As I looked over my shoulder for instructions, he asked me to hold this position and smile. He quickly took the first photo of the day. Then he asked me to slowly turn towards him, continuing to take photos over and over again, making positive comments after each photo. I relaxed more and more, and he noted that I was becoming more beautiful with each photo. He liked my smile, and I happily shared it with him. Andy, as directed, changed the lighting slightly, and my friend sat in the far corner of the studio. I felt his gaze following my every move. Here I am, a pregnant mom, a stay-at-home mom, a talk committee member, about to pose for a calendar for my husband, my boyfriend, and his special clients. But how far will this go? I didn't know, and from the moment I agreed, we didn't discuss it. Time will tell, but I was ready. Phil offered to take off his sandals, and my friend immediately took them and carried them to the other end of the room. Phil asked me to sit on the bed in my summer dress, with my legs resting loosely to the side. The pose was designed to highlight my bare feet and red nails, as well as my figure. After a few shots, Phil was confident that I was a great model and that the rest of the session would go well. My legs were naked, my feet were bare, my arms were also uncovered. Phil placed me next to the bed and began to direct my actions while taking photographs. I remember pulling the cover off, and as I leaned over to grab the edge, Phil took a few pictures from behind while my upper body turned toward the camera with a smile. Then he invited me to lie in bed, and the satin sheets became a real sensual pleasure for my skin. They were cool and incredibly smooth. Phil continued to photograph me in various poses, asking me to remove my top layer of clothing. After a few more poses, he asked me to get out of bed and lie down on the white carpet on my stomach. He took more pictures while I lifted my bare feet and smiled at him and the camera. He then suggested that I turn over, leaving my legs pointing to the side, and asked me to straighten my hair in a relaxed position and raise my arms above my head as if I were stretching. After that, he advised me to wear the next outfit. My friend came behind the screen again to help me change. I felt incredibly sexy. 3 men looked at me like I was a desirable woman, and my friend admired my entire body, even though I was almost 2 months pregnant. I wanted every woman to be able to safely experience this feeling of being sexy and desired. The next outfit was similar to the previous one, but in white instead of black. The poses stayed pretty much the same, and again I took off my top layer about halfway through the shoot. Since the white color matched the rug, Phil suggested a change of approach. I now posed vertically on the bed, standing and kneeling. He skillfully created frames that emphasized aesthetics and sophistication, avoiding excessive emphasis on detail. Next up was a red lingerie set, and this time the photos were taken both standing and lying down on a white carpet. I was pleased with the result. The pictures turned out exactly as I imagined them, elegant and quite discreet. They were perfect for gifting while staying within the bounds of what was acceptable. The confidence that the photographs would leave a pleasant impression, even on strangers, made the shooting more comfortable. During the shoot, Phil suggested adding dynamics. He asked my friend to help me take off my top while I was lying on the carpet. I covered myself with my hands, as is intended for such filming. Phil noted how well the light highlighted the features of the silhouette, which helped create harmonious and beautiful shots. The atmosphere remained professional and comfortable, and the final result was stylish and elegant. Phil began to walk around me, and Andy enthusiastically changed the lighting under his guidance. I noticed that all 3 men had noticeable lumps in their pants. They enjoyed my nakedness, and instead of feeling embarrassed or shocked, I became even bolder, enjoying the effect my body had on them. Almost unconsciously, I started adjusting the edges of my clothes, and as Phil continued taking photos, he asked me to take off the top. I did it almost without hesitation and remained lying there, except for the wedding ring. When he asked me to change position, he commented that he had never seen a more elegant and beautiful image. He talked about how my state seemed natural and calm, perhaps due to the pregnancy or the excitement I was experiencing at the time. I remember the words of the doctor who, during the first examination, immediately realized that I was pregnant by my appearance. Each of the men perceived me differently. My friend saw his beloved in a new light. Phil enjoyed the sight of the woman he had just met taking memorable photographs, and Andy saw his real mother opening up before his eyes, demonstrating her beauty and strength. When Bill asks about this event again and again, I tell him this story many times. The remaining photographs from that day, of which I think there are about 100, show my face, my smile, my fair skin, long, beautiful legs, neatly manicured nails, and my neatly manicured hands. Phil made sure to include Bill's wedding rings in each photo so the viewer knew I was married, but the focus of each photo was on my state of pregnancy. Phil suggested different poses to create varied and natural-looking shots. I was asked to take different positions, sometimes lying on my back, sometimes on my side, which added variety to the photographs. He paid attention to every detail of my image, creating an atmosphere of trust and comfort. It was enjoyable and exciting, and I enjoyed every moment. Every man in the room could see my excitement and joy, and they could not hide their admiration. The more I saw how they worked on the photographs, the more inspired I became. In every photo, except for a few close-ups, Phil asked me to look directly at the camera and smile. The audience would have no doubt that I was enjoying the moment. My eyes reflected intense emotions. I remember feeling completely naked in front of Andy. He was a little younger than me and always looked closely, especially at my breasts and other parts of my body. I doubt he had seen a pregnant woman before, so this was his first time seeing how a woman's body changes in preparation for childbirth. My friend and I left Phil's studio by lunchtime. He brought me home not for dinner, but to spend time together. He was very excited, and I also could not hide my emotions. That day, he suggested that I do something new that I had never done before. I thought about it and imagined what it would be like, especially since we were already close. He was gentle when he first asked, and then assured me that I would enjoy it as much as he did. I still remember those feelings when he supported me and guided my actions. If I hadn't been so excited after the morning session, I might not have decided to do it, but the desire to explore new sensations was strong. I felt closeness and connection when we were together. He supported me and helped me feel comfortable in new experiences. Our interactions were full of tenderness and care, and I felt our relationship deepen. He shouldn't have held me back because I wanted it just as much as he did. Gradually, I began to take the initiative, eliciting quiet signs of pleasure from him. Hearing his reaction made me realize how important it was for both of us to be close. All my senses were involved. I saw, felt, and heard how wonderful we were having time together. My goal was to bring him joy and support him. Suddenly, he expressed his affection, and I felt our deep connection. I found a way to please him even more by being supportive and caring. He helped me surrender fully to the moment, and I felt our attachment strengthen. As he relaxed, I continued to give him warmth and attention, maintaining our closeness. Bill was also inspired when I told him about our friend and the differences between them. First, I described the differences in their appearance. My friend was taller and more muscular, which attracted my attention, while Bill had softer features. When our friend was around, his naturalness and confidence evoked special feelings in me. I felt more connected and inspired than I did with Bill. His confidence and naturalness gave us both a special feeling of harmony. During my period and pregnancy, when intimacy was limited, I always found ways to maintain intimacy with Bill through touch and affection. However, every time my friend and I met, our connection remained deep and sincere. We shared the most important moments, enjoying every moment together. Now that I also share these moments with Bill, our relationship becomes even stronger and filled with mutual respect and love. Bill still has a calendar from that first year, one of 12 photos of me in my underwear posing for Phil. But he had never seen the calendar that my friend and his special clients have, with 12 of the sexiest and most seductive photographs of a married lady, completely naked, enjoying sharing her most intimate parts. Because this calendar is only for Phil, Andy, my friend, and his clients. After all, a good girl would never pose for her husband like that in front of a photographer, would she? Today, as Bill learns more about what happened all those years ago, he is amazed at how sexy, uninhibited, and passionate I was, and it turns him on incredibly when I share these adventures with him. He admitted to me that he was jealous and felt that he had missed out on a lot because of my courage in our marriage. However, he is also turned on by the knowledge that what he always wanted for me to be a truly free wife has in fact already happened. He is torn between regrets, worries, and his hormones increasingly overwhelm his mind, overwhelming him with intense sexual desires. We haven't reached the end of the story yet, and his fascination with what happened next fuels his interest and sexual desire. My meeting with my friend has happened 4 times while Bill was away on business since my last chapter, and my friend still doesn't know that Bill is now aware of our past history and that I share these adventures with Bill every time he is at home and in the mood. Of course, Bill is always in the mood, and over the past few months, we haven't had as much physical intimacy as we do now. Bill enjoys me telling him these stories, creating vivid images in his mind. After Bill received the calendar for that first Christmas, while lying in bed together, he started asking me about the photo shoot and how it went. He liked the calendar, and my friend was right. I told Bill I did it for him, but I didn't have the courage before. Of course, he wanted to know everything. How I felt, what the photographer did I take off more clothes, did the photographer give any hints? Standard men's questions when a wife gives such a surprise. I took advantage of the situation and said that nothing really happened, but what if? If I took off my top, how would he feel? What if I completely undressed in front of another man who was taking pictures of me? What if there was a young assistant in the studio with the photographer? These questions usually brought Bill to a climax, and the topic was put off until the next time we found ourselves in bed together. Then the questions started again. Men really love hearing the same stories over and over again, and each time I added a new twist when he least expected it. Usually these were questions, what if? I became more and more aware of what turned Bill on, and also what turned me on when he was with me. He also liked to remember the experience, and his questions were mainly about how I felt at one time or another. How did Bill feel when he heard this? My friend and I continued our lunch dates. I met him naked, wearing only my wedding ring, and we enjoyed time with each other. I was no longer a bored housewife. I was a sexy woman, capable of completely satisfying two men, and it brought me great pleasure. To be adored, desired, and loved so passionately by two men made me feel incredibly special. My friend's fantasies revolved around the question, what if Phil and Andy had been more daring? How would I react? I thought about it and honestly admitted that I was so aroused and excited, knowing that three men were watching me so intimately that I would probably allow them to do whatever they wanted with my body. This, of course, greatly excited my friend because he imagined himself sharing me with others not only through photographs, but also in real life. Both men who were part of my life became increasingly agitated the sexier and bolder I became. A friend of mine once told me that one of his clients, to whom he had given a special calendar, was delighted with it and wanted to meet a sexy and beautiful married model. This was a very important client of a friend of mine, and he suggested maybe taking him to lunch one day. I asked the question, does he really want this? Does he really want to share me with another man? He replied that if I agreed, it would give him great pleasure, but the decision was mine. However, if this happens, then his long-standing fantasy, namely to be with a woman and a man at the same time, sharing her sexually, will finally come true. Bill had such a fantasy, but my good girl image did not allow me to realize it with him. A friend of mine had the same fantasy, and I wondered if this was an extension of the fantasy I was already living. I already have two men, but for now separately. It would be a step to the next level being with two men at the same time. Of course, I couldn't do that to Bill, but could I do that to my friend? I asked again, are you sure? My friend said again, yes, I'm sure. I wanted to know more about this client. Is he married? What does he look like? What does he do? My friend told me that the owner of a company in a neighboring city, he is over 50, he is married, but his sex life at home has completely stopped. He didn't have mistresses, he didn't go out with girls of easy virtue, he played sports every day, he was fit and completely fascinated by me thanks to the photographs in the calendar. All in all, he was the perfect and safe person to help us both live out this fantasy. He was much older, in fact, he could have been my father, but that made me feel safer than if he was a younger man. I said we need to think about it, and then I will make a decision. I still remember the surreal feeling of sitting at the table naked while my friend, dressed, discussed the possibility of bringing an important client to dinner, knowing that the goal was not the dinner, but to share me with him. That afternoon, as we had sex in Bill's bed, we fantasized about how things could happen. Should I meet him naked at the door or maybe clothed? Should I just limit myself to lunch or go further on the first day? My friend suggested we not change our routine because he had already seen me naked, and the fact that a real married woman could be so daring in a safe environment was incredibly exciting for him. We both made this decision together because our common feelings and thoughts brought us closer. Before my friend Bill left, I agreed to our relationship, and he was very happy about it. I asked when this would happen, but he assured me that he would take care of everything and notify me later. That weekend, when Bill returned home, I was full of anticipation and excitement, constantly thinking about the upcoming event. I didn't know the exact date, but I felt completely ready. We spent more time together than usual, and our relationship became closer and warmer. Bill enjoyed our meetings, and so did I. Early the next week, on the Monday morning before he left, we spent time together again. It was Valentine's Day, and while I was cooking dinner, I felt a special connection with Bill which made the day especially meaningful to me. When my friend came to the door with a nice-looking gentleman named Carl, I was a little surprised. My friend didn't warn me that today was a special day, but perhaps everything would have gone differently if I had known in advance. I tried to remain calm, but my friend gently hugged me and introduced me to Carla. Carl complimented my condition, noting that I was already 4 months pregnant. He shared his memories of his wife and her pregnancy, expressing admiration for my confidence and uniqueness. He emphasized that my courage and determination made me special, and he would like to get to know me better. His words calmed me down, and I invited both men to my table for lunch. I understood that there was no turning back, and over dinner we talked about ourselves and shared stories. I truly felt attracted to this wonderful gentleman. I realized that there are many good men who appreciate a woman for being a woman and do not try to use her, but truly crave deep friendship and are willing to share themselves personally. Phil was a true gentleman, my friend was a gentleman, Carl was a gentleman, and I felt safe with them all. After lunch, my friend suggested that Carl and I would be more comfortable without his presence for the first time, and put my hand in Carl's. I led Carl into the bedroom where Bill and I slept together. I had already been in this bed with a man who was not Bill, so once more why not, I thought. I surprised both my friend and Carl by closing the bedroom door and locking it. My friend heard the click of the lock and realized that this time he was not invited. I made the decision to give myself completely to Carl, and my friend was excluded from that moment. Carl wanted to make sure that I felt comfortable with him and looked forward to intimacy as much as he did. I stood naked in front of him, took off my wedding rings on this special Valentine's Day, smiled my warmest smile, and asked if he had any more questions. From his wide smile, I realized that there were no more questions, and I kissed him and began to undress him. His appearance was similar to Bill's, but he had a different style. He was an attractive man, especially in an informal nude setting. Yes, we spent the first day together, and he became my new partner. It was wonderful, completely different from Bill or my friend. He was gentle and calm, appreciating the moments of intimacy that I gave him, which his wife never did. Soon our relationship became more intimate. His touch felt different than Bill's or my friend's. We changed the situation, and now I took the initiative into my own hands. At this moment, our feelings reached their climax. We hugged, and he held me tenderly. He calmed me down after everything, helping me relax. I had not yet felt complete satisfaction as I was focused on his comfort and joy. When we got up, he started getting dressed, and I asked if he wanted to see me with my friend. He answered yes, and then I put my rings back on and opened the bedroom door. I called my friend, and he came in just as Carl was putting on his pants. I quickly knelt down in front of my friend, smiled playfully, and said that I wanted to make sure that he, too, left happy. And from the sparkle in my eyes, he knew that I had a great time with Carl, and the smile on Carl's face confirmed that Carl was very pleased, too. Yes, I became closer with my friend and began a more open relationship, receiving support and attention several times a day. Carl was delighted. He had never met a woman so free and open, truly enjoying communication with a man. About a week later, after several private lunches with my friend, he returned with Carl again, and the three of us decided to spend some time together. While one of them was with me, the other maintained our connection. We enjoyed our time together and strengthened our relationship. From time to time, my friend invited Carl to dinners. Sometimes we retired to the bedroom with just Carl, and other times we spent time together. When I was alone with Carl, I tried to pay special attention to him, which I did not do for my friend. John was born in late spring, and I immediately took steps to plan my family. This allowed me to not worry about extra precautions and focus on raising my child. Summer was a great time again, although I had to spend more time at home. Bill never complained about the lack of communication. I inspired him with ideas, and he easily took part in our plans. Little did he know that many of these ideas were based on my real experiences. In the fall, I found out that my friend had another woman. He still wanted to get married and find a mother for his little daughter, and since I was unavailable, he began the search himself. I was a little jealous, and we started talking more seriously about what we both wanted. The shock came when I asked if he was still interested in me leaving Bill and being free to marry him. He hesitated, not understanding whether I was suggesting I leave or what was going on in my head. I admit I didn't know for sure myself. I loved Bill, I loved my friend's size, and in many ways I loved him. However, his answer shed new light on our relationship. He started talking slowly and said that I was the most amazing woman he had ever met, that there was no one who could compare to me in intelligence, courage, beauty, all in one package, more than he could have dreamed of. But the genie was out of the bottle, and he knew that I could never be satisfied with one man again. For his wife, he wanted the woman I was before, and not the woman I have become now. At that moment, I realized that we were not destined to be a couple. We could continue our relationship forever, and frankly, after his words, I began to suspect that Bill, if he knew, would also perceive everything the same way. So, not only did I no longer have any chance of a future with my friend, and I didn't really need one, but I was also convinced that I had ruined my chances of a long life together with Bill, if he ever found out. And so that Bill doesn't find out, I'll have to continue my relationship with my friend so as not to tell Bill about this. Oh, what a tangled web. I became sober, I felt pain, and for the first time I felt scared. What happened to me, and why am I no longer fit to be a good wife for my friend? After all, he was drawn into all these sexual fantasies, he created them himself, and now I was not suitable for him. I asked if he didn't enjoy our games, and he admitted that he did. It was the best sex of his life. Then why wasn't I good enough for him and his daughter? The irony was that I didn't want to leave Bill or marry my friend, but now I realized that husbands only really want good girls, and to my friend I was no longer good. I burst into tears in his arms and said that I didn't want to lose him. A strong motivation was that I did not want our relationship to end. My friend asked why, adding that he didn't want it to end either. I told him about my agreement with Bill, that I would have to confess everything to him after my relationship with my friend ended. He smiled, and for the first time I felt like I was lying next to a sly fox. The look on his face said that he still had plans for us, and that I had just given him the motivation and leverage to control me. He said that he understood me completely, and that we could continue forever, because we are compatible, we suit each other perfectly, and he has a lot of fantasies that need to be realized not with his wife, but with his mistress. I felt trapped in many ways, and at the same time I was strangely excited by the idea that I could be forced to do things I had never even dreamed of. I can't explain why I still felt safe with my friend, but I did. He said that he would most likely propose to his current girlfriend, that he would not tell her or Bill anything about our relationship, but that I needed to agree to continue dating him and not reveal the nature of our relationship to anyone. We both had too much to lose, and as I reflected on how strangely our lives had turned out, I began to realize that we both needed each other because we filled the voids in each other's lives that our spouses failed to fill. They can. Holding him as we lay naked next to each other, we both agreed to continue and live out the fantasies we had never shared with anyone else, but could now experience with each other in the safety of each other. In many ways, we were in a no-win situation. Neither of us could leave or stop what we had, and we were both now obligated to satisfy each other's most personal and erotic needs. Life was about to get even weirder as we began to take advantage of our new position and indulge in those fantasies that we had never shared with anyone before, but could now act out with each other. I had no idea then how liberated I would become. Our relationship with my friend has entered a new phase, the phase of mutual obligations and hidden agreements. I realized that we were no longer just lovers, but accomplices in a secret that bound us more tightly than many legal ties. Our meetings began to resemble a careful maneuvering between duty, desires, remorse, and a strange, but very strong mutual affection. My friend was in no hurry to propose to his new lover, but he did not stop hinting that he was going to do it. I didn't know how dear or important she was to him, but he insisted that he wanted a good wife, a mother for his daughter, and not a woman who engages in the most daring sexual experiments. He seemed to share these two images of women, the one at home and the one on the side. And I, involuntarily, found myself in the latter role. At first, I felt insulted and humiliated by this, but over time I realized that something new was awakening within me. On the one hand, I began to appreciate Bill even more, his devotion, reliability, and the purity of feelings that he gave me. I understood that my husband was the strong foundation of my life. On the other hand, my friend's unexpected control over our relationship made me feel strangely excited. I felt that I was submitting, but I also loved what was happening, although with my mind I understood how immoral and risky it was. Carl still showed up to dinner with us from time to time, most often at my friend's invitation, less often at my own. I got used to their presence in my life, but at the same time I became more cautious. I learned to quickly put myself in order before Bill's arrival, to carefully hide the traces of my entertainment. I also noticed that after giving birth and tubal ligation, I became even more relaxed. The fear of pregnancy went away, and this removed one of the psychological barriers. My friend and I discussed new fantasies, and sometimes they were quite bold. He suggested situations that we hadn't talked about out loud before, role-playing games, special scenarios, even more explicit three-way encounters, sometimes even with strangers he could bring. I hesitated because each new adventure was more and more difficult to hide from Bill, but I was also afraid to refuse. Not out of fear of blackmail, surprisingly, my friend did not threaten me directly. Rather, I was afraid of losing this dangerous, exciting world of secret passions, which, oddly enough, filled me with life. Meanwhile, Bill continued to be a loving husband and father. He was happy about his son, we spent family weekends, and seemed like an ideal couple for our neighbors and relatives. No one suspected that my life had become a theater of two acts, one sunny and clear family, the other gloomy and daring, unfolding behind tightly closed doors. I began to feel like an actress who masterfully plays two roles, a faithful wife and a passionate lover, experimenting with sex without restrictions. Carl, over time, became a kind of refuge for me when my friend was too pushy or wanted something completely extravagant. With Carl, I could feel something calmer, almost affectionate. He didn't require me to remove the rings every time and didn't insist on complicated scenarios. Our rare but confidential meetings were perceived by me as a pleasant pause when I could feel like just a desirable woman and not a priestess of passion or an asset in another risky game. But it became increasingly difficult to maintain balance. I understood that my friend was gradually pushing me to new heights, to go beyond even the boundaries that I had already crossed. And this took my breath away, either from horror or from anticipation. I caught myself thinking that I was dependent on this tension, on the constantly electrified atmosphere. One day, in late autumn, when Bill was away on a long business trip, my friend announced that he wanted to throw a party for the chosen few. He described it as a private meeting of a few couples and singles in the know, where I could expose myself to a wider audience. I was numb to the idea. This was no longer just secret pimping and rare, curious guests, but something that could become an open stage for our fantasies. It seemed that now my boundaries would be pushed even further. On the one hand, the thought of participating in something like this scared me. On the other hand, the temptation to try something so extreme was enormous. I understood that by agreeing, I would become even more dependent on my friend. But if I refuse, what will happen then? Will he be able to leave everything as it is, or will he use what he knows about my life to get his own? Our eyes met. There was confidence and a strange sparkle in his eyes. Fear and desire for the unknown fought within me. I didn't give an answer right away, saying that I needed time to think. He nodded and smiled, realizing that each of my hesitations only tied me more to him. At that moment, I was at a crossroads, realizing that there were still many events ahead that would change me forever. And most importantly, I could no longer be the person I once was. I was a woman with a double life, woven into a complex web of passions, power, and secret agreements. And abandoning this path became less and less possible because I myself no longer wanted to take a step back. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.